The grand hall of the celestial spire shimmered with a light that was not light, a product of ancient technology that made the very air seem to glow. Representatives from 100 species murmured in their sections. There forms a tapestry of the galaxy's diversity. They were all there to witness a union, not of love, but of desperate political necessity. The ruling house of the Velen Empire, a people of refined grace and silvery, crystalline skin, was to be joined with the militant Draxion Dominion, a reptilian species whose scales reflected the hall's light like dark iron dot at the center of the hall. Standing with a rigidity that spoke of deep unhappiness was the Velen princess. Her name was a melodic chime, but today it sounded like a dirge in her own mind. Her gown, woven from captured starlight, felt like a chain. Beside her loomed her intended, a Draxian prince whose smile was a display of sharp, calculating teeth. His grip on her slender arm was possessive, not protective. "This alliance will bring stability," the High Arbiter droned, his voice amplified to fill the vast space. An end to the border conflicts. A new era of prosperity. The princess did not hear him. Her gaze was fixed on a middle-distance nothingness, her spirit screaming silently within its crystalline cage. She had protested, pleaded, but the weight of empire, the fear of war, had crushed her resistance. Today, she was a trophy to be exchanged, a symbol of surrender dressed as peace. The final approach was announced. And as a gesture of universal goodwill, representatives from the newer species had been invited to bear witness. From the world called Earth, human delegates. A small secondary archway lit up. From it, a handful of humans walked into the magnificent hall. They wore simple, dark uniforms, devoid of the bioluminescence or scales of the others. They moved with a quiet, observant confidence, their eyes taking in the scene with analytical calm. They were diplomats, scientists, soldiers, a multi-role team from a species, still finding its place on the galactic stage. The princess's eyes flickered toward them, a minor distraction in her overwhelming despair. Humans were still somewhat novel in the core systems. They were known to be resilient, oddly adaptable, and possessed of an emotional range that more reserved species found. Intense dot, as the High Arbiter began the final binding vow, the princess was required to turn and face her betrothed. It was the moment of ultimate capitulation. A tear, forbidden and shameful, welled in her large, opalescent eye. She slowly, agonizingly began to turn. The lead human delegate, a woman with a calm demeanor and watchful eyes, had been observing the princess closely. She saw the tremor in the royal's hands, the glassy sheen of unshed tears, the absolute bleakness in her posture. It was the look of a creature cornered. The human woman's own expression, professionally neutral, softened almost imperceptibly. A faint line of concern appeared between her brows. She did not fidget or speak, but her entire attention focused on the princess with an empathy that was palpable. The princess completed her turn, facing the Draxian prince. His clawed hand came up to take hers in the traditional grip. As his cold, scaled fingers closed around her wrist, a final visceral shudder of revolt went through her. It was a small, trapped motion, but her head turned slightly, a last, fleeting look for any semblance of mercy in the crowd. Her eyes met those of the human woman, and the princess froze. It was not the blank freeze of shock, but the absolute, crystalline stillness of profound recognition. In the human's gaze, she did not see political calculation or detached curiosity. She saw a deep, clear understanding. She saw the reflection of her own resistance, not as a political inconvenience, but as a fundamental wrong. She saw a fire, banked but present, that said, "I see you. I see your captivity. And it is not right." That gaze held no judgment for her tears, only a silent, fierce solidarity. It was a look that spoke of battles fought for self-determination, of a species' history written in revolutions and declarations of rights. It was a humanity that resonated in the princess's soul with the force of a stellar collision. The entire hall seemed to fade, the glittering lights, the murmuring crowd, the oppressive presence of the prince. There was only that human face, that silent witness who understood the crime being committed without needing a single word of explanation. The High Arbiter's voice faltered. The Draxian prince's grip tightened, a warning squeeze. "My lady," he hissed, his voice a low rumble. "Complete the vow." But the princess could not. The human's gaze had acted as a key, unlocking the final, unbreakable chamber of her will. The political consequences, the threat of war, the weight of duty, they all crumbled before the simple, revolutionary truth reflected in that human's eyes. She did not have to do this. She wrenched her wrist from the prince's grasp, emotion sharp and definitive. The silvery material of her gown whispered in the sudden, utter silence of the hall. "No," she said. The word was not loud, but in the breathless quiet, it rang like a shattering crystal. "I will not." Pandemonium erupted. The Draxian delegation surged forward, their growls filling the air. Velen guards hesitated, torn between protocol and protecting their princess. The prince's face contorted in reptilian fury. "You insult the Dominion. This means war." Through the chaos, the princess's eyes found the human delegate again. The woman gave a single, barely perceptible nod. It was not an instruction. It was an affirmation, Dot. The princess turned to the High Arbiter, her voice gaining strength, ringing with a newfound authority. "The Velen Empire will not purchase a peace that costs its soul. There will be no union." What happened next was studied by historians for generations. As the Draxian guards moved to seize the princess, the small human team did not draw weapons. Instead, the lead woman simply stepped forward, placing herself between the princess and the nearest Draxian. "Under interstellar accords," the human said, her voice calm yet carrying, "a sentient being cannot be compelled into a binding contract under evident distress." This ceremony was a clear violation. We bear witness. It was not a threat of force, but an invocation of law, a principle the older empires had often glossed over. The statement caused another ripple of confusion. The human continued, addressing the entire assembly now. "The Galactic Concord recognizes self-determination. Do you uphold it, or is it only words?" The moment stretched, fragile, and volatile. Then, from the Valen section, a senior commander, moved by his princess's courage and the stark clarity of the human's challenge, barked an order. Valen guards solidified their ranks around the dais, their stance now definitively protective. The standoff was absolute. The Draxian prince, seeing the shift, knew a physical altercation in front of the entire galaxy would be a greater loss of face than a broken engagement. His rage was cold, but his tactics shifted. "This is not over," he spat. Before turning and storming from the hall, his delegation following Dot in the trembling quiet that followed, the princess stood alone on the dais, her heart pounding. She looked down at the human delegate, who had now stepped back, her job as witness complete. Later, in a private antechamber, the two met. The princess, still in her ceremonial gown, looked at the human woman in the simple uniform. "Why?" the princess asked, her voice soft. "You did not know me. You risked your standing, perhaps your world's safety." The human woman offered a small, gentle smile. "We have a saying on Earth. All that is necessary for the triumph of a wrong is for good beings to stand by and do nothing. We saw a wrong. We could not just stand by." "It was your looking at me," the princess said, the memory causing another tremor. "You saw me, truly saw me. No one here has done that in a very long time." "Sometimes," the human said, "that is all the resistance needs, to be seen, to be acknowledged. It makes it real." The alliance was broken. Tensions with the Draxian Dominion would be high for years, but they did not escalate to the full-scale war many feared. The princess's act and the human's simple, principled intervention sparked debates across the galaxy about coercion, consent, and the true meaning of treaties. And on Earth, when reports filtered back, people understood a new aspect of their place in the cosmos. Their strength was not just in engines or weapons, but in a stubborn, inconvenient, blazing belief in the right to choose one's own path. They had not fired a shot. They had not deployed a shield. They had merely witnessed, and in doing so, had reminded a galaxy of a forgotten truth. The princess never forgot the face that had mirrored her own soul back to her. And the human delegate never forgot the moment a look became a lifeline, proving that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe is the quiet, unyielding refusal to look away from another's pain. It was a human thing to do. And on that day, it changed everything.